effect. The field should just be made level for everybody to compete. So he should be released and given the chance to compete freely.
Cameroon's opposition leader Maurice Kamto has been held under an undeclared house arrest.
Many diseases affect Africans for which there are no affordable cures because no investments are channeled into researching them.
And the African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, has been launched, taking a significant step forward. But first, the news with Onele Nzinzi and our sports headlines with Msibudi Makura.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Preparations have gotten underway for the funeral service of the former Zambian President Edgar Lungu. Lungu died while receiving specialized treatment in South Africa. He was 68 years old. The government's announced a 7-day period of mourning, which ends on Sunday. Bunolo Maribe reports.
The body of the late Zambian president will be repatriated on Wednesday, while preparations are underway for his memorial and funeral services in Lusaka. Lungu was being treated at a medical center in Pretoria. He was Zambia's 6th president and held the office from 2015 to 2021 when he lost an election to the current president, Hakainde Hichilema. Hichilema has announced that Lungu will be offered a state funeral.
Political scientist from Special Interest in Political Economy, Dr. Frederick Motebi, says Rwanda's decision to withdraw from the Economic Community of Central African States signals that there has been unanimity in condemning Rwanda for its role in the conflict with the DRC. Justifying the move, Rwanda also accused the neighboring DRC of instrumentalizing the bloc with the support of member states. According to the Foreign Ministry, Rwanda's right to the rotating presidency, as stipulated in Article 6 of the treaty, was deliberately ignored, with instructions from the Congo. Mutebi says the move will forever not have a direct impact on regional stability.
What that exit demonstrates is that within ECAS itself, there has been a degree of unanimity in condemning Rwanda's so-called undermining of DRC's territorial integrity. But as far as resolving that conflict is concerned, I'm not sure it's going to be affected at all.
The United Democratic Movement Women's Organization in South Africa has condemned the recent return of Oscar Pistorius to public sports, calling it an insult to the memory of his girlfriend River Steenkamp. Pistorius, who was convicted of murdering Steenkamp in 2013, competed in the Ironman 70.3 triathlon in Durban last week. This was Pistorius' first athletic appearance since being released on parole in January 2024. The organization Secretary General Thandi Nontenja.
This is an insult to all the victims of gender-based violence in South Africa. We all know that at the moment the country has a pandemic that is reaching a crisis point for femicide. To have him on parole is one thing. To have him participating in public sports as if nothing had happened, it's heart-rendering for the family that lost a child who will never participate in anything, not even her own birthday.
Lastly, the U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping new travel ban, which bars citizens of 12 countries from entering the United States, comes into effect from today. The order, which Trump signed last week, restricts the nationals of most African countries: Chad, Congo, Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Burundi, Sierra Leone and Togo. Others are nationals from Cuba, Venezuela, amongst others, who will face partial travel restrictions. The U.S. president said the list could be revised if material improvements were made, while other countries could be added as threats emerge around the world. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Yannick Sinner as well as Carlos Alcaraz thriller proves this tennis rivalry is here to stay, while Mamelodi Sundowns are en route to the USA to participate in the FIFA Club World Cup. Details coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Onele Nzinzi and Msibudi Makura with our news and sports headlines. Now, we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet, channel 802, on OpenV channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now, join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 that's 406 9126 # Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any comments or questions for us, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. And today on #Africa Update asks, in your opinion, is Rwanda acting too hastily in withdrawing from ECOWAS? Rwanda is pulling out of the Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, after it was prevented from taking up the chairman role over the weekend. Now, in your opinion, is Rwanda acting too hastily in withdrawing from ECOWAS? So send us your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa, or send us a voice note on +2763 as 406 9126 # Africa Update Us.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
It is 12:08 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our Cameroon's opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, has been held under an undeclared house arrest in the Central African state's economic capital, Douala. Kamto returned from a political tour to Paris over the weekend and met thousands of supporters who say they are anxious to listen to their leader. But Cameroon government officials insist he will not meet with civilians. Muki Kinzega reports from Yaoundé, Cameroon.
The atmosphere remains tensed in Cameroon's economic capital city Douala, where opposition leader Maurice Kamto has been under an undeclared house arrest at Bonapriso, where he was lodged upon return from Paris over the weekend. Kamto insists he must meet thousands of his supporters who are anxious to see him after what he calls a groundbreaking political rally that was held last week in Paris, France. Njamsi Theodore is one of Kamto's supporters.
This should not be happening. This is a very pregnant year. We are just a few months to elections. Arresting him will rather have a counter effect. The field should just be made level for everybody to compete. People are still registering, and this could rather motivate voters turnout in favor of the opposition party, mostly his party. So he should be released and given a chance to compete freely. He who has the strength, he who has the capacity should normally win.
The governor of Cameroon's littoral region, where Douala is located, Samuel Dieudonné Ivaha Dibois, has totally indicated that for security reasons, the meeting between Kamto and his supporters will never take place. Troops have been deployed all over Douala to contain crowds that are trooping in from all the nooks and crannies of the Central African state. Latest reports indicate that at least 4 officials of Kamto's CRM party have been arrested. CRM confirmed the arrest to Channel Africa this morning and said they will release the names of the arrested persons in the hours ahead. In the meantime, many businesses in Douala are on a standstill and no one seems to know when order will be re-established. Kamto, who claims he won Cameroon's 2018 presidential elections, has declared he will be a candidate in the October 2025 Cameroon's presidential polls. Cameroon's opposition says long-serving leader Paul Biya and his supporters are intimidating Kamto's supporters because the opposition leader's popularity has been increasing by the day. Reporting for Channel Africa, this is Moki Kinzeka in Yaoundé, Cameroon.
Well, today on Hashtag Africa Updates Ask, we ask the question, in your opinion, is Rwanda acting too hastily in withdrawing from ECOWAS? Rwanda is pulling out of the Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, after it was prevented from taking up the chairman role over the weekend. Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms with X and Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Rwanda is pulling out of the Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, after it was prevented from taking up the chairman role over the weekend. The decision comes after a diplomatic row over its involvement in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And to discuss this further, we are joined on the line by political scientist and a conflict resolution expert, Dr. David Matanga. Dr. Matanga, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Good afternoon, Africa, and good afternoon, the globe.
Now, let's begin with the issue surrounding the chairmanship or the chairman role, which was supposed to have gone to Rwanda on Saturday. Now, Rwanda has accused the 11 other members of imposing the DRC's diktat, which is an order or a decree that's imposed by someone in power without popular consent. Is this the case, or is Rwanda overly sensitive on the DRC Rwanda spat?
First of all, this organization was formed in 1983. It started functioning in 1985. It is very little known. Very little is known about this organization because it crisscrosses across ECOWAS and some parts of East Africa and some parts of SADC and so on and so forth. But let's come back to the point at hand. Why has Rwanda kicked itself out? Because Rwanda finds itself between a hard place, a rock and a hard place. First, DRC Congo, which actually most of the countries not to vote Rwanda, is given so many privileges within this organization. It looks like DRC Congo has gone to say it is Rwanda which has caused all the troubles that they have in their country. Therefore, Rwanda had no alternative, had nothing left. You cannot ascend to power to become a president of this organization. At the same time, the other member states are not even supporting you. Therefore, it had to kick out itself.
Now, Rwanda has previously left the bloc despite being a founding member. What does this say for Rwanda as a country and the bloc itself?
I think the bloc is we know little about it. I don't know whether Africans know that this bloc exists. This bloc has got very notorious members, very dangerous people like you call presidents. You have the one of Equatorial Guinea, a very dangerous guy who slaughters people every day. You have another one in Cameroon. Look at this. This is the type of organization that DRC Congo itself is not a place where you can talk about a state. These are these are countries without a country, without a state, and a state without a state. I've said it here. There are several countries in Africa that should not be called countries. They should be just be named states without a country. There is nothing there. There's no administration there. There is nothing. Nobody knows about this organization. I don't know why President Kagame is paying a lot of attention to a non-existent state, a non-existent organization that does not even know what it should do for itself.
Now, Dr. Matsanga, why is this the case? Why is ECOWAS not known? Because they refer to themselves, or they call themselves, the Economic Community of Central African States, just like any other region, any of the other regions, whether it's ECOWAS, the SADC region. Why is this particular bloc not known?
It is not known because it's a group of dictators. Look at the membership. Just look at the membership, my sister. You look at the membership, all the countries in this bloc are fractures in terms of structure governance. Equatorial Guinea. Talk of Equatorial Guinea. Look at Equatorial Guinea. One man has been there for 42 years. A leader leading by a heavy hand, slaughtering everybody. No opposition. Opposition comes up to is slaughtered. And the AU goes on, the chairperson of AU goes there, gets money, says elections are free and fair. You know, look at Gabon. Look at Cameroon. Paul Biya, 42 years. He's coming to 90 years. He's now waiting for God to call him. Then he can relinquish and stop slaughtering Southern Cameroonians because of their English, because they speak English. And Britain is watching. France is watching. All these countries have led us to so much chaos. So little is known about this Economic Commission of Central Africa and whatever call it. Even in AU, I don't see anything. I see East Africa, SADC, IGAD, ECOWAS. Those are the prominent issues, countries that we talk about, and the economic commissions, and then economic blocks that we hear about. I don't think every South African can tell you, or every African can tell you, I know something about this organization, because it is headed by dictators.
And just to digress quickly, Dr. Matsanga, before I let you go, just looking at some of these countries, some of the leaders, these are some of the countries that have now got a travel ban from the U.S. President Donald Trump.
Yes, and we Africans have a problem. And I have told you, we Africans are reactive, not proactive. We saw this coming. We saw as soon as Trump came to power, he gave you signals. You South Africans were not proactive. You should have known that someone is going to tell lies about you. And the lies have caught up with Elon Musk. You can see the lies have caught up with him. You saw that governments in Africa should start listening to programs like this one, for experts like us who tell them the truth, that there is something coming, because we have started international relations. We have started conflict resolution, every factor that can trigger. We saw this coming. These African countries saw that the ban against them was coming, because some of them, their nationals go there, they overstay. Every country in Africa in the world has got its own immigration regime. When you go to South Africa, behave like South Africans do. When you go to Tanzania, you are from Kenya, behave like Tanzanians do, like Ugandans do. When you go to any place, don't start eating your food instead of eating the food of that country, and then you want to cause a spike there. You delay there. You abscond yourself. You even go and do work without telling the authorities in that country. Nobody will leave you. We saw this coming, some of the countries. But what do? You must hit back. Who is hitting back? Nobody, apart from Chad. Chad has said, don't come. We sell ourselves, Lulu. We sell our countries. You sell your crooked bag so cheaply in tourism. And I want to call upon South African Minister of Tourism. Wake up. You sell crooked bag. These people don't have animals, the ones we have in the crooked bag. Why do you give them a visa for free? Why do you give Americans a visa for free to enter South Africa? Why do they pay only $50? Why should an American pay $50 to come and see Mount Kilimanjaro? What is it in his country? Time has come for Africa to wake up. Wake up and see that you are given this continent by God. God gave you this continent, it's yours. Why do you want cheapen yourselves? Cheapen yourself to go to beg. We have a lot of things here that can change Africa, Lulu. We don't need to have Trump to insult us every day. Those people need us more than they need. They don't have minerals in which we have.
Yeah, Dr. Matanga.
Why don't we use our collective effort of African Union and become a force to reckon with?
Yeah.
We are enemies of ourselves. The leaders are enemies. Ramaphosa, wake up. That was a call for you. That someone embarrasses a president in Africa. We have never embarrassed Trump anywhere.
Yeah,
How does he embarrass our president?
Dr. Matanga, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much. I'm always bitter when it comes to Pan-Africanism. And I will always die preaching it until God takes me away.
Dr. Matanga, always a pleasure. That's political scientist and conflict resolution expert Dr. David Matanga joining us on the line. It is 22 after 12 Central African time.
Your weekday afternoons have been upgraded by The Upside with me, Tebohole Kuleni, and my partner in crime, Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
And if you want to find out all things luxury, fashion, travel, arts and culture, this is exactly the place to be.
Prepare to be delighted. If it's hip, if it's happening, we are talking about it. We talk about what's now, what's next, and most importantly, what matters most on the African continent and the diaspora.
Do you know what time it is? Catch us every weekday on Channel Africa from 1 to 4 p.m. Central African time.
Yeah, that's us every weekday afternoon.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 23 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our Kenya's police chief has suspended the head of the Homa Bay police station and all officers on duty after the death of Albert Ojwang, a teacher and blogger who was arrested for allegedly publishing false information online. Ojwang was transferred 350 kilometers to Nairobi, where police say he sustained head injuries after hitting a cell wall. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Amnesty International Kenya has called the incident very suspicious and is demanding an urgent independent investigation. And to talk to us about this, we are joined on the line by Executive Director for Amnesty International Kenya, Irungu Harton. Irungu, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu, and just such a sad occasion for us to be talking, really. Thank you for inviting us.
Now, Irungu, what is Amnesty International Kenya's initial assessment of the circumstances surrounding Albert Ojwang's death in police custody? How did he hit the cell wall? How are they explaining that?
Well, what we've learned is that Alfred Ojwang was actually picked up in Homa Bay. Homa Bay is a county that is about 350 kilometers away from Nairobi. And rather than booked into that police station, he was driven the full 350 kilometers past hundreds of police stations and courts to Central Police Station here in Nairobi. And the first question we asked is, why would they not charge him in a court of law or arrest and detain him in a police station that's closer to his home abode? So this is the first very suspicious, incident. The second one was that he was apparently booked in, but we've not been able to verify that he has been logged into the occurrence book. He was then placed in a cell by himself, according to the police, and their theory is that in the middle of the night, he started banging his head against a cell wall and died as a result of it. So they're calling this a suicide. But obviously, this has changed with this morning's announcement by the National Police Service that no less than probably about 5 to 6 police officers, including the officer in charge of the commanding station. And let me just correct something. The officers that have been interdicted or suspended are not from Homa Bay. They are in the, I guess, the most well-known Kenyan police station, that is Central Police Station in Nairobi. So all these 4 to 5 officers have been interdicted or suspended, which seems to suggest that the police are now looking at a different theory, that it would be not the theory of suicide, but something has happened. As Amnesty International, we are conscious that police stations have to be the safest spaces for any citizen. I mean, they are essentially protected environments. They are places that are set up to protect suspects against themselves, against others. But unfortunately, in the case of Alfred Rujang, we have a death in custody of police officers, and that is shocking for all.
Now, what does Amnesty Kenya expect from the authorities in terms of an independent investigation, and what role would you like to see civil society playing in this process?
Well, firstly, that the suspicion that he has been killed essentially for what was initially called publishing false, making a false publication, which is that on his social media platform he said something that was considered by the Director of Criminal Investigations as false. We know as Amnesty International that this, according to our laws, is a misdemeanor. It is not a serious crime. And again, why would he be taken 350 kilometers to a particular police cell and then turn up dead just a few hours later? So we're essentially saying that the National Police Service cannot investigate itself. On this particular case, it has to cede the crime scene, all the evidence, the information that relates to his registration, the cars that brought him that great distance, that all of this has to be ceded over to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority and the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, and they must exercise their mandates to essentially access the crime scene, collect all the evidence, and interview all officers, other detainees, and any witnesses that may have been there to this, what we suspect is a homicide.
Now, there are growing concerns over the arrest of citizens for online expression. Now, how would you describe the current state of digital rights and freedom of expression in Kenya?
I think the state of digital rights and our safety as, I guess, netizens is very fragile at the moment. 1 week ago, a coder by the name of Rose Jerry was arrested on a Friday afternoon. She was picked up with her 2 little children and placed in a cell, and essentially they proceeded to hold her for 88 hours, 4 times longer than the statutory provision allowed by our constitution. And when she was brought to court on the Tuesday, after the public holiday, the charges were just defective. There was really nothing to substantiate why she shouldn't have been, why she was arrested, and secondly, why she couldn't have been given free bond or released on bail the very next morning, despite the fact that she had lawyers at the police station. So I think it is a chilling moment. I think a real concern that law enforcement agencies have become severely compromised, that they are taking instructions politically, and that the concerns that there may be a resumption of the protests that we saw on June 24th and 2024 last year, that this necessitates this heavy-handedness, which unfortunately for the case of the family of Albert Ojwang has ended in his death.
And just in wrapping up, what steps must be taken or need to be taken to ensure accountability and to prevent further deaths in police custody, especially in politically or socially sensitive cases like this one?
Well, immediately the officers who are in the vicinity of a death like this need not to be suspended. They need to be detained and charged as potential accessories to the death. And nobody can walk into a police station, so therefore it's very clear that whoever was given access to that police station is immediately a suspect, and they need to be arrested. The second thing is that the crime scene has to be secured by an independent agency, and I've spoken about this already. But the last one is that I think We're at a point now where we have to start calling on the Kenyan government to admit a UN-based fact-finding team to independently investigate these, because without independent and external investigation, these kind of abductions, these kind of killings remain a threat to Kenyan lives, the rule of law, public interest, and even, I would add, national security. It is just so dangerous to have a situation where suspects are not safe from the officers that have arrested them.
Well, Irungu, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update, and hopefully we will be able to, continue this discussion at some point and find out exactly what has happened going forward. Thank you for your time on Africa Update.
Thank you.
That's the Executive Director for Amnesty International Kenya, Irungu Houghton, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Rwanda is pulling out of the economic community of the Central African states after it was prevented from taking up the chairman role over the weekend. The decision comes after a diplomatic row over its involvement in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Preparations are underway for the funeral service of the former Zambian President Edgar Lungu. Lungu died while receiving specialized treatment in South Africa. And President Donald Trump's order of banning citizens of 12 countries from entering the United States has come into effect. This forms part of his policy to restrict immigration. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Oh, thank you, Onele, for that update. We say good afternoon to Msibudi Makura with our sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. A very good afternoon from the sports desk. Mamelodi Sundowns captain Themba Zwane says the squad is relishing the opportunity to challenge themselves against the best with less than 10 days before the opening match of the FIFA Club World Cup. The Brazilians will face off with Korean outfit Uslan HD at the Inter & Co Stadium later on this month in a Group F encounter, which also includes the likes of Borussia Dortmund of Germany as well as Fluminense of Brazil. Speaking to FIFA TV as the hype around the FIFA World Cup builds up, the midfielder believes Sundowns will come out of the newly expanded 32-team tournament an improved side.
The excitement will be amazing. You know, that side they really love football. They support. Obviously, it will be fully packed, and it will be a nice thing for us as players to play in that stage. It's exciting, you know, as a player to go in such tournament, and obviously you want to be playing in that high level and try to see how far can you go and check how far you are as a player and try to compete with the best.
Right, so this will be Zwane's second FIFA Club World Cup following Downs' debut back in 2016. And the captain insists they are not here going to the World Cup to make the numbers. He also adds that there will not be any pushovers against Uslan or Borussia.
Firstly, we're going to watch them, but we've been watching them. We know that they're a good team. They have good players. We respect them, but we don't fear them. And we're going to go there and play our football and try to win the game and match them in terms of quality and the pace of the game.
Banyana head coach Dr. Desiree Ellis has trimmed her preliminary squad for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament down to 28 players as she continues to fine-tune her list ahead of the continental tournament to be held in Morocco next month. So the 24 will be joined by 4 overseas-based players at a later stage, as well as still have club commitments, and will only join the team at a date to be confirmed by the South African Football Association. That's, of course, SAFA. So the final squad announcement will be made on the 23rd of June in Johannesburg, and then the team will depart for Morocco shortly afterwards. The African champions are in Group C, and they will get their WAFCON campaign underway against Ghana on the 7th of July at the Honemer Stadium in Oja. They will then face off with Tanzania on the 11th of July and finally Mali in their final group game on the 14th of July. In tennis news now, Carlos Alcaraz beat Yannick Sinner in a tightly contested French Open final on Sunday. Stretched thin in the fourth set, Alcaraz mounted an incredible comeback against the world number one, ultimately clinching the match in a 5-set thriller. Now, speaking after that match, Alcaraz delivered a heartfelt tribute to Sinner, who had only recently returned from a 3-month doping ban in May at the Italian Open.
It is amazing, the level you have. Congratulations for an amazing 2 weeks, amazing tournament. To you, to your team, I know the hard work you're putting every day. It is huge. Honestly, I know how hard you're chasing this tournament or every tournament. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be champion, not once but many times. It's a privilege to share the court with you in every tournament, making history with you. Be able to make history with you in this tournament, in other tournaments. You are a huge inspiration for the young kids, for everyone, for myself as well.
And finally, in basketball news, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 34 points for the Oklahoma City Thunder as they beat the Indiana Pacers 123-107 in Game 2 of the NBA Finals to level the series at 1-1. The Pacers snatched a victory in the final second of the opening game on Friday. Just last week, but on Sunday, the Thunder dominated from start to finish. Gilgeous-Alexander's first basket at Paycom Center in Oklahoma took him to 3,000 points for the season, making him the 12th player in the NBA history to reach the milestone Game 3 of the best of 7 series, taking, of course, that hoping to take the lead when the two teams are set to face off at the Gainbridge Field on Thursday. This will be the first time that the city of Indianapolis will be hosting a finals game in 25 years. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 Summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa
Global Summit.
African Voice.
Well, thank you to Msibudi Makura with our sports update. It is 12:39 Central African Time, and we go to our business news with Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and good afternoon. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has called on the private sector to recommit to economic transformation in order to build a South Africa where all can share in the country's wealth. Writing in his weekly letter to the nation today, Ramaphosa says using lessons learned over the past 3 decades, the country must move with greater purpose and ambition to implement meaningful, broad-based black economic empowerment. He lamented the fact that many continue to benefit from the legacy of exclusion entrenched by apartheid. Ramaphosa has emphasized that the notion that a choice must be made between economic growth and transformation is false. Busi Wopela reports.
While progress has been made since 1994 to put in place laws such as the BBEE and Employment Equity Acts, the income gulf between white and black households remains vast, according to Ramaphosa. He has called for private banks to review their lending practices to unleash the potential of black business and use their supply chains far more deliberately to empower many more black-owned businesses, not just to improve their triple BEE scorecard, but to grow and diversify their supplier base.
South African fashion retailer TFG has reported a 4.6% rise in annual earnings thanks to a rebound in sales in Africa in the second half of the year, store expansion and the acquisition of British chain White Stuff. TFG, which also operates in Australia, says headline earnings per share rose to $0.57 in the year ended the 31st of March, up from 9.707 South African rands. Gross profit was up 6.7% to a record $1.62 billion. Malawi and Mozambique have opened the first ever one-go border post where infrastructure is designed to streamline cross-border trade and movement. The inauguration comes a day after the two nations signed 3 agreements aimed at streamlining trade and travel between the two neighboring countries. Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera and the Mozambican President Daniel Chapo presided over the opening of the infrastructure. George Mango reports from Blantyre.
The one-go border post model carries out the migration, customs and health processes between the two nations at a single entry and exit point, promoting greater efficiency in the movement of people and goods and reducing time and logistical costs. The model is part of the World Bank-funded Southern Africa Trade and Connectivity Project, which aims to strengthen connectivity, facilitate cross-border trade and promote sustainable economic growth in the Southern Africa region.
The European Union has barred all air carriers certified in Tanzania from operating in its airspace, citing serious safety deficiencies uncovered in both operational and regulatory areas. The ban affects 35 Tanzanian air operators and comes after a comprehensive safety assessment led by EU aviation experts. Tanzania has joined a list of 17 countries whose aviation oversight is deemed inadequate, with 142 airlines globally banned for regulatory failings. Shares jumped and the dollar pared recent gains as Asian markets reacted to better than expected U.S. jobs data ahead of talks in London aimed at mending a trade rift between the U.S. and China. Wall Street stocks had closed sharply higher on Friday after the jobs data eased concerns about damage to the world's biggest economy from President Donald Trump's unpredictable tariff regime. On Monday, MSCI's broadcast index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan climbed 0.7%, with Australia's markets shut for a holiday. Now let's shift our focus to financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 556, Botswana 13 pula 24, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shillings 718, Zambia 24 kwacha 60. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 55, Russia 78 rubles 80, India 85 rupee 75, China 71 18, South Africa $1 is at 17 rand 75 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,324, platinum at $1,206 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil $66.33 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our business news. It is 12:46 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. As temperatures across parts of South Africa are expected to drop below freezing, people living on the streets are pleading for help. The South African Weather Service has forecast a cold front pushing in from the western parts of the country, with localized snowfall expected in some areas early in the week. And to tell us more, we are joined on the line by Lihlohonolo Thobela from the South African Weather Service. Lihlohonolo, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and thanks for the invite. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Cold, but waking up to some rain in the morning. In winter, I mean, why are we exactly dealing with such conditions in South Africa?
Yeah, once you have a system like a cut-off low, it definitely does bring rain in winter, especially over Gauteng and eastern provinces. But yeah, it's quite cold because we had several cold fronts that made landfall over the Western Cape the past weekend into the new week, and it's still expected to impact the central interior into the eastern parts up until Wednesday in the evening. A 30% chance of rain and showers is still expected along the east coast on Wednesday. But between today and tomorrow, what we can expect is that the Eastern Cape, we're expecting disruptive snow, heavy rain that might lead to localized flooding, some damaging winds, especially along the east coast of the Eastern Cape into the southern coastline of KwaZulu-Natal. Severe thunderstorms are expected over the central and the eastern parts of KwaZulu-Natal for tonight, which might result in some heavy downpours that lead to localized flooding, a possibility of damaging winds, as well as a possibility of hail over those areas. But for now, disruptive snow is actually making difficulty navigation over areas around Lutzburg Mountain Pass on the N9 between Gafrinet as well as Nickelback. And it's still expected the road closure is underway over those areas as we speak. For the eastern part of the Eastern Cape, we're expecting the snow to last up until at least on Wednesday evening.
Now, you say that, so it's going to be up until Wednesday evening. So are you saying Thursday it's back to normal temperatures, or the temperatures that we are now getting used to?
Yeah, I mean, overnight into early hours of tomorrow, we yet to see the coldest night into the coldest day in Gauteng since the winter has started. But, I mean, we're still yet to see what the winter has in store for us in terms of dropping temperatures. But for Gauteng, we can say the rain is expected between today into tomorrow. But tomorrow it will be mainly over the southern part of Gauteng, where you can wake up to some showers and rain. But into the Wednesday and Thursday, we start seeing some clearing, especially over Gauteng and Mpumalanga, as well as into Free State. Another thing to mention is that cold temperatures are expected over the extreme eastern part and the southern part of the Free State province, which might also experience some cold conditions that lead to some snow falling overnight tonight into tomorrow morning.
Now, Letlogololo, while we are in the winter season now, are we to expect further cold fronts such as this one crossing our paths at the moment, in later stages during this winter period?
Yeah, we're still yet to see more cold fronts as winter started up until the end of winter. We will have cold days, but in generally the seasonal forecast suggests that the temperatures will be above the average temperatures you would get in a cold winter. But for now, we're just going to experience extreme spells of, winter days. So you'd have days where it's quite cold. You'll have your normal days, but when we have extreme weather, you'll have extreme weather like what you're having now with the snowfalls. And if there are weather systems like a cut-off low or a cold front paired with each other, you might even receive more of the severe thunderstorms like what we're seeing in KwaZulu-Natal later in the evening. So yes, we're expecting more cold fronts in this winter, and there will be obviously cases from case to case, those differ.
So are we going to see some snow in Johannesburg?
There's a very low likelihood of snow, maybe some sleet in the southern part of Gauteng, which would cover just around Vereeniging, but no, not so much like what we're seeing in the Eastern Cape. There is a very, very low likelihood of snow to occur, but if it does, it will be in the extreme southern part due to, I see the freezing levels are dropping slowly but surely. I mean, they're getting there. So if we are to receive anything closer to ice precipitation, it will be in the extreme southern part of Gauteng.
All right, Letlogololo, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you. Have a blessed one.
Thank you. And that's Letlogololo Thobela from the South African Weather Services joining us on the line.
The EU-African SME Summit. Join more than 200 change makers from June 9 to 21 at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AFCFTA, the EU's global gateway, and the power of small businesses. It's an opportunity to spark collaboration and unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricasmesummit.eu. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Africa's quest to restore hope among its citizens regarding access to healthcare services, particularly for the treatment of non-communicable yet often complex health conditions, has taken a significant step forward with the launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The facility aims to provide high-quality healthcare to Africans with a focus on diseases such as hematological disorders and cancer, among others. Additionally, it will engage in research on illnesses that appear to be unique to African populations or people of African descent in order to identify the most effective treatments based on evidence rather than relying on speculative approaches. Channel Africa's news correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nusa Atohengbe, has this report.
The launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence is a demonstration of the concern of the collaborating institutions, groups and individuals to establish an excellent treatment center of excellence on the continent. The plan is to give Africa and people of African descent an innovative facility with the aim of reducing the cost of acquiring healthcare services that could match what is available outside of the continent, for which Africans have spent huge resources on health tourism. The facilities was made possible through the combined efforts of the African Development Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company. In collaboration with King's College Hospital, London, it will provide its expertise to support the Africa Initiative. Speaking during the launch of the center in Abuja, the president of the Afri-Exim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, says for quite too long, research into the health challenges affecting Africans have been left to those who have not been able to provide the needed solution, but which the AMC will now address satisfactorily for the continent's healthcare delivery.
AMC is the center that we hope will drive renewed emphasis on research in diseases of health interest to people of African descent. Many diseases affect Africans for which there are no affordable cures because no investments are channeled into researching them. We have historically sat back and waited for others to do research for things that concern us. The AMCE has been set up to try to reverse that. An example is sickle cell anemia, which affects 2 to 3% of Nigerians and about 15 million Africans worldwide. It is a collective responsibility to begin to change the course of that disease.
Taking the expectations further, the Chief Executive Officer of the Medical Center of Excellence, Brian Deva, told participants during a tour of the facilities that non-communicable diseases are the primary concerns of the center, and one of them, the sickle cell anemia, will not just be treated but it will be cured permanently. The Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Nene, who represented the African Union, said the launch of the African Medical Center of Excellence is a reflection of what Africans can do through collective efforts. He says it's a continuation of the continent's success in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
The African Medicine Center of Excellence is a living testament to what Africa can achieve when we harness our collective vision and we deploy the necessary resources to ensure that that vision becomes a reality. We confronted the COVID-19 pandemic, and Professor Orama was requested by our heads of states to be one of the co-champions defeating this pandemic, laying a very strong basis for a continental revival and resilience after COVID-19. It is therefore befitting that today he is concluding this task that the Assembly of Heads of States and Government of the African Union gave him by opening and commissioning this center to serve our continent in the imperative of public health.
Much as the facility is directed at solving Africans' health requirement primarily and is located in Abuja, Nigeria, one question that comes to mind is how well Nigeria would do in getting its support to solve some of its pressing health needs in such areas as maternal mortality. The alarming proportion of the loss of lives of women during child delivery has given the government a grave concern, and finding a solution to the calamity has gobbled such funds with a slow but an encouraging result only in the past 2 years. Before now, statistics reveal that 814 out of 100,000 women died during childbirth. Though this has reduced slightly to 512 in 2024, the deaths has continued to cause concern. Dr. Choma Ejekam, a public health specialist and consultant, says the deaths are preventable, but the drugs in use in Nigeria have limited effectiveness.
Women die from complications. The focus and the leading cause is actually postpartum hemorrhage. So this happens when a woman after birth, the uterus didn't contract enough to stop bleeding following delivery. It's said to contribute to 1/4 of maternal deaths globally. And Nigeria alone, 22% of our maternal deaths is out of postpartum hemorrhage. And sadly, Nigeria contributes to 19% of the global burden.
As daunting as the task of finding a permanent solution to maternal mortality may seem, there is the strong belief that with the establishment of the AMC, most of the peculiar health problems plaguing people of African descent will be resolved without much stress. According to Benedict Orama, the center will serve as a catalyst for the transformation of African health sector, a proof that Africa is taking its destiny in its hand in healthcare.
And that report by our Channel Africa's news correspondent in Nigeria, Collins Nusa Atohengbe. And we say good afternoon to Dabukholo Kuleni from the Upside team and find out what is coming up today. Hello.
Good afternoon, Lulu. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And you?
Good, thank you. We are finally in winter, are we not?
We have, but it's the wet winter for me that just, stresses me out.
You don't like the wet winter?
No.
Let's
do cold. Let's not do cold and wet. No.
Yeah, no, this morning rained a little bit, drizzled.
Yeah.
But then there was a gust of wind that just came out of nowhere, bringing in that
thunder as well.
So it is a cold front, isn't it?
It's
passing by.
Yes. But it is going to be cold after that.
I mean, it's bearable. Let's be honest. It's not that bad. Anyway, what's coming up on the Upside this afternoon? We go from townships, plaza shops to high-tech mining solutions.
Mm-hmm.
We first up we meet Tabiso Mongane, a young South African entrepreneur using AI to bridge the gap between small business and big industries. Mm-hmm. Then we meet Congolese-born interior designer Adonia Yanata, who's bringing African texture and tradition to luxury spaces across the continent. Mm-hmm. And we round things off with good news for your pockets. The Reserve Bank has cut the repo rate, right? So what does this mean for your pockets? Paying back loans, mortgage, what does this mean for you at home? So these are conversations we'll be having this afternoon.
All that and more coming up on the Upside at the top of the hour with Dabukholo Kuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. For myself, Lulu Gaboo and the Africa Update team say thank you to our producer Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator Didimalo Macau, and social media Elaine Bengani. It's been a great day. Continue with us on our social media platforms and let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.